What's up, everyone? It's Thomas with Real Broker here in St. Augustine, and today we have a special show for you. I'm going to be interviewing a financial advisor. His name is Ben Reep, and we're going to be talking about affordable housing here in St. Johns County, the average wage here in St. Johns County for most people living here, and what the options that are going to be available for those people. We're talking teachers, police officers, firefighters, public servants, all those type of people. So if you are one of those, this podcast is made exclusively for you. Ben, how you doing today?
Good. Thank you. How are you? Thanks for being here. Thanks for this interview.
I'm doing wonderful. We just shot the shit talking about UFC for a good 15 minutes. So, on the same page pretty much, on the same wavelength here. So I'm glad you joined with us today. And, we originally met because I interviewed the sheriff and he was like, hey, you interviewed me? You got to talk to Ben Reep. So...
Well, that's nice of him. Yeah, that was really nice of him.
Yeah, and he's a super cool guy, too.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
So, Ben, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I moved to St. Augustine in 2012 after leaving the Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I partnered with my stepmom, who had a business with Edward Jones as an advisor. And I got to go in and work with her and learn this business. I started working with Edward Jones. I came to Ameriprise, to Galleon Capital, where I'm at now, with Chris Smith about a little over 4.5 years ago, and really doing the same thing, just with a different company. And I just work with people throughout the community and help them however I can. That's my job. I really enjoy MMA, and I like training jiu-jitsu. We talked about that some, and I love St. Augustine. It's a great place to live.
Yeah, for sure. And what really draws you to St. Augustine? What's your favorite parts about living here?
I love the restaurants. I love downtown. I like the people. I like the history of the locals. I mean, look at it like this. To come here from an island of Minorca with a group of people from different areas and different skill sets and make it in a literal wild jungle, mm-hmm. and then survive in a community here all that time, you got to have some sand.
Yeah.
You got to be a hard group of people. And that right there is a special thing. But then the people that come here recognize it's a beautiful area and recognize it. And you get these good people that have been here their whole life that are special people. And you get really good people from all over the world coming here. So it's a real diverse community. And it's got a flavor like you don't find in many other places in the country.
Yeah, especially here in Florida.
Yeah, it's got a special set of roots, and
mm-hmm.
So it's a great place. I mean, I think that's why we're here.
Well, the history is a big thing too, and you talk about the Menorcan, and then also. St. Augustine was one of the first free black cities, after the Civil War, and then Fort Mose. I'm not sure if you've been up there. They're going to be revitalizing that too.
Yeah.
Such cool history there as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, you look at the way that the people worked with the Seminole Indians, and this whole area, it's got just so much history in it. I mean, mm-hmm. You think about it, that fort's been there 500 years or something. The town's been here over 450 years.
Yep.
I mean, that right there, that's amazing. And so you have families that trace back that far. It's special. That's a special thing. And they're hardworking people mm-hmm. in this town, and they're invested in it.
Yep.
And then you get people who recognize it, who feel it, who recognize the area and the talent, and they come here. And I think they're bringing great things in too. I've only been here since 2012, but already I consider myself from St. Augustine. I'm not from here, but this is my town.
This is your home now.
It's my home. This is where I'm going to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And really, this podcast is about those people that have historically lived here, that have they're going through the wave of change right now, you know, and that's what we've been talking about, because we've been talking about affordable housing, trying to help some of these public officiants like teachers and public admin people get to that goal of home ownership, right? And all these people are hardworking people. They've lived here for several years, and things have just changed so drastically. They feel like they've been left behind.
Yeah, it's brutal. It's hard right now to afford a house in St. John's on a single income.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard.
It's just hard, period, to afford a house right now,
Well, housing market went up a lot, and now interest rates have gone up a lot, causing it to be harder to do. And luckily, the market's come down a little bit, but our market's so insulated because it's such a desirable area. People are coming in here from all over the world, all over the country, and they're injecting their capital in it. And it's great for our home market and it's great for our businesses, but it's hard if you're a worker, especially if you're younger and you're trying to find a place here. I mean, there's still places, but as we've discussed, it's really hard to find something that's affordable for under 250K in St. Johns County. I mean, you can find it, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
And under 200, it's getting really tough.
And it's like if you're under 200, if you're under 250K, I mean, you better be pretty handy. You know,
Yeah,
like
exactly.
it's like, so you're a special type of buyer already.
Exactly.
You know, so
Yeah.
that even weeds it even further.
Yeah.
So I know we wanted to talk about, you know, because the average salary here in St. Johns County is $37,000, right? But there are people, most of the people that work for the government are going to be making around $55,000. So we wanted to really do a deep dive on what that looks like in terms of what type of house they can afford, what steps can they make, and why, if they even should, buy a house, right? Because as a financial advisor, not saying you're saying people should or should not buy a house, you're just giving them what you think is best in their best interest, right? But in general, why do you think it's a good decision to buy a house?
You know, for some people it's not. It depends on your time horizon. You know, if you're going to be in an area for a long time, buying a house makes a lot of sense. It becomes an investment. For most Americans, just look at it. Most Americans, their biggest asset is the home that they live in. And that's just the story of America. That's the case for myself. And, you know, I've had some business success, but my biggest asset is my house. And, you know, so that's why it's a good way to accumulate wealth that way.
Yeah.
And getting out of the treadmill of constantly renting and having your rent prices creeping up is a good thing. Now, in the short run, it's better to rent most of the time because it's hard to get in and out of a house and know that you're actually going to make money. The housing market doesn't always just go up like people tend to think. I mean, it's up and down, but over the long run, you know, over 10 years, it's a great idea to own a home. And even over 5 years or longer, it starts to look good. But to me, if you're less than 5 years in an area, then maybe renting could be just as good, depending on the homes available and the prices. There's a lot of variables. But.
For sure, and that's conversations that we have every day. And like I'm not a pressure person, you know, like, hey, buy a house today, you'll figure it out tomorrow. No, like I want you to make the best decision for you, because at the end of the day, if people are happy, they're going to come back and use me again. If they're unhappy, guess what? They're going to tell a whole bunch of people they're unhappy with my services, and that doesn't help my business, right? So is that exactly what you're saying? Like, hey, if you're looking to, you know, move within the next 3 to 5 years, probably shouldn't look at buying a house. Maybe at the latter end of the 5 years, buy a house. But if this is your home and if you plan on making this your home, then you should seriously consider buying a house, right? If you're going to be here for over 10 years, then financially you're locking yourself into the payment and you're also getting the appreciation of that house over that time.
Yeah, and I know people are going to hear this and go, well, Ben, what about those flippers? They make money just flipping homes. And that can be done if you have some skills to do what it needs to be done to appreciate the house, and you're really good at buying a house if you're undervalue, you know, and you're a specialty investor with a lot of knowledge of an area. And yeah, that can be done, but over time, that doesn't really work.
Yeah.
I mean, it works during the right housing markets when it's going up. But if the market's not going up and you're trying to flip a house, you're not making money.
Yeah.
The last 6 months, if you're trying to flip houses here, you weren't doing well.
You're having a tough time unless you got a great buy. You know,
unless you got a great buy. But that, you know, that's hard to do in this market. So
yeah, and that's also a specialty as well, right? It's like we're talking about your general person here in the area. They're already working a 40-hour week job. Do you want to work another job? Like, yeah, the potential for income is there, right? But
yeah, because those people who are doing that well are putting in a lot of sweat equity. And they're doing a lot of remodeling, and a lot of value comes from their time in that house. And then, yes, it appreciates, but, well, of course, they put in a bunch of hours and skill in there, and just off the sweat of their own back, they might have put in $50K, and then the house appreciated $50. Well, that's not magic. That's investing in your investment, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's mostly sweat equity right there that's going into it.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing, like I just bought a house and I'm getting my townhome ready to rent. It's the worst. It sucks. Like I was just there last night till 10 o'clock and I'm patching, painting, all that kind of stuff. And then I find a little nick here, and I'm just going around like a crazy guy. And I even got to go back today and because I have a squat rack I got to sell. But it's just all these little tiny things. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, most people aren't built for this because I'm barely built for this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do it.
Oh, I found out that I wasn't really. I mean, I wish I had kept my rental. And but when I sold my rental, I felt like I got rid of a headache.
Yeah.
And I had a good renter. They paid rent. They were good. But it was just things needed to be done all the time. And now I have two homes where things need to be done. And I'm already not good at fixing stuff.
Yeah.
So it was like, and I got a job. It became a whole nother job. But
Yes, sir.
yeah.
So we were talking about, how do we help the most people here in St. Johns County? So let's talk about those people that are making $55,000 a year, right? So we know that $55,000 a year, especially with today's housing market, with the average sale price of homes being north of $500,000 here in St. Johns County. I wish I was making that up, but I'm not. That's just what it is. Based on someone making that kind of money, would you consider it a good time to buy a house?
I think it's always a good time to look to buy a house to improve your position if you're renting and you're going to be in an area for the long term. Now, 55,000, not all those people are equal. Some people make 55,000 a year and they've already saved 50,000 to put down.
Yep.
Now that's a big deal, and they have no debt. Now, if you have no debt and you're living well within your means and you've saved 50K or even 20K, you're in a good position. You're doing pretty good. You're doing the right things. You've gotten control of your cash flow. But if you're making 55K and you've got debt and you got a car payment and you got a credit card and you don't have much money saved, you really can't buy a house.
Yeah.
You have to pay off your debt, then you have to save money, then you have to buy a house.
Yep.
In that order. I mean, so it's not rocket surgery. Your debt to income ratio has to make sense, and mortgage people are going to tell you that. So debt to income ratio's got to really be around 30%. It could go a little higher, but ideally 30% or lower. So if you're at 50K, let's just say 55K, 30% of that is going to be around, I don't know, $16,000. That means all your debts have to be around 16 grand a year. That's hard to do.
Yeah.
So if you have a car payment, all right, now now of course your house payment's going to take away your mortgage, but still, start figuring it out. If you've got debts, you're not going to get under that number.
Yeah.
So then that also shows the type of house that you're looking at. You got to put enough down, and then you got to get a house that's lower cost to be able to do it. So you're looking at probably under 250K, and you're looking at putting money down. Those are hard things to do.
Yeah.
They're really hard things, especially for people starting off. It's not easy, but nothing worth doing that's really valuable is easy.
100%.
All the things that benefit you in life are hard things to do. Buying a house, especially right now in St. Johns County, is hard, but it's going to benefit people if they do the right things. So yeah, it depends on the person with 55K.
Yep.
And most people that I work with who are in that area have two incomes and who are looking to buy a house. And then it makes it a lot easier. And that's what we're looking at. Unfortunately now for young professionals, a single person to buy a house is tough, especially a single person with kids. Like sometimes I meet single moms and it's really hard and they're trying to buy a house and I'm like, man, kids and child expenses and one income and trying to buy a house. I mean, it's just tough to do.
You're stretching that dollar.
You're really stretching the dollar. Yeah. They have to do everything right.
So pretty much if you're single here in St. Johns County, you either you got to have all your ducks in a row. Your debt, essentially any bad debt that you have needs to be gone.
Yeah.
You also need to have a healthy nest egg that you're able to put as a down payment to also kind of switch up what your mortgage payment is going to look like down in the future. And then also you should get married, because if not, or you need to find a rich sugar daddy or something. That's it. Or sugar mama, either one.
I almost want to say it's tough, but I almost want to be like, yes, you almost need two incomes. And it's like there's ways to get creative about it, but it's like two incomes is going to help people out a lot. Most of the young people that I work with who are buying houses have two incomes.
Yeah.
Most.
Yep.
Especially in that range.
Yeah.
Because I'm not saying you can't afford a home at 55K in St. Johns County. You can. You have to do everything right.
Yeah.
You have to have literally no debt. And you have to save up a chunk for a down payment.
Yeah.
And then now you have options. And you know what? Well, good for you. You've done a lot of things right. And that took a while to get you there. That's hard work to get there. So
for sure. Yeah. Oh, my tablet went to sleep. Oh, it is what it is. But yeah, and that's the hardest thing, right? Is you have people that are trying to qualify. You have people that are starting off, and they're, like you said, younger people, my generation. You're either
Damn millennials,
you
man.
damn
These
millennials, you know.
millennials.
The boomers ruined it for us, no. But it just seems like for our generation, everything gets more and more expensive, right? Whether it's college, whether it's healthcare, cars. I mean, just in the past year, you know, cars have gone up, and it's like if you in almost in our generation, it seems like it's you know, you buy it for a couple, even like, let's talk about cars. You buy a brand new car. Everyone on the road in St. Johns County has a brand new car. I got the oldest car on the road, you know, like, and that, I'm not bragging about that, you know, but it's a fact, you know, and it's almost the social generation where we're like, hey, I want to look like I have money almost, you know?
Exactly.
Well, and maybe that's not different from any other generation.
No, it's always like that. It's unfortunate, but that's in America what we do. And I told you this before the show is I've done it. I spent most of my life doing this, is we trade our time for dollars and then we trade our dollars for garbage. Mm-hmm. And when I mean garbage, I mean any asset that depreciates. So most cars are garbage to me. Yeah. Because it's just going to be something that you throw a lot of money at and it's worth a lot less when you go to sell it. Mm-hmm. That's basically a bad investment. And so what you're doing is you're just trading your time for things that cause you to take more time, to work harder. Yeah. What you want to do is get ahead of that curve and trade your time for assets that appreciate, that buy you time down the road. That's what investing really is. Mm-hmm. That's where home ownership comes in. It ends up being the biggest investment for most Americans over time. It does. Yep. That's just a fact. So that's obviously a linchpin investment. I mean, it's important. You got to live somewhere, and if you can live and build equity, okay, fantastic. Yep. It's great.
And I think that's one of the best arguments for housing. And people talk like, oh, well, the housing market's going to crash, that, you know, prices are going to go down. It's like, okay,
yeah, well, probably.
You have a roof over. Yeah, exactly. It's like probably, and they'll probably go back up, you know, and they'll probably go back down again.
They're going to go down, but in 15 years, you're going to do better, you know, having owned that house, and you're going to feel a lot better. And how can I say that for sure? Well, I can't, but statistically and historically, that's just always been the case. Yeah. I mean, if you own a home for 20 years and you maintain it, it would be hard to find someone who didn't appreciate on that house. Oh yeah. It would be hard. It would be really, I mean, it would be almost impossible to do.
Yeah. So quick story on my great grandparents. They bought a house in the 70s. Well, they bought a piece of land on Treasure Beach on the Intercoastal in the 70s, in 1977, for $7,000. They got 2 lots. Yeah. And that was passed down to my grandfather, and my grandma still lives there now. Mm-hmm. The house next door, who I've known since I moved down here in '98, was Paul and Gary. They sold their house, double wide trailer, for $800,000. Yeah. So, I mean, we're talking the span of 50 years now, so you're getting some great appreciation. But it's like, hey, if we bought a townhome in 2019 for $162,000. Today, that townhome's probably worth $250,000. You know, now, of course, the past 3 years are anomaly years. They're unicorn years in terms of real estate. But that's what we're talking about here, is that type of appreciation and wealth building, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, there's really few, actually no investments where someone's going to loan you money to invest in it at a low rate. Yeah. Like, you know, and now the rates are higher right now to buy a home, but still speaking of it's a low rate to buy. So you're able to borrow and buy something that's an asset. Now, I know a lot of people say, yeah, but Ben, all debt is bad. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily. I mean, I agree with Dave Ramsey 99% of the time, but I think a good home mortgage is not a bad thing to carry. It's not, if the interest rates are low on it, it's like, I'm not paying my home mortgage off fast because it's too low. I locked it in at a really low rate. It makes too much sense to carry. Yeah.
It's like, well, if all debt is bad, then like, take me back to, 2020, I'll get a 3% mortgage, and inflation 3% year over year, I'm going to be good. Hey, that debt's great. We all want that debt.
Yeah. I have clients who are at 2.5% and 2.25% on their mortgage. And they ask me if they should pay it off. And I said, well, it's better to pay it off than it is to hold cash. Mm-hmm. But it's better to hold a CD than it is to pay it off. It's better to hold a tax-free bond than it is to pay it off. Yep. Because you're diversifying your assets and getting a better return. I mean, tax-free bonds are paying 4.5%, 5% over the long run right now.
Yeah.
And so that's better than 2.25%. So better to do it. And now you don't have all your eggs in one basket either, and it's more liquid. So it's just better to do overall. And tax-free bonds are very safe, if you're getting A-rated or better. So we're talking safe investments.
Yeah. So you touched on it a little bit there, but we talked about interest rates, but before we hopped on the pod here, but also inflation, and that's really a big hinge point in why affordability has gone down. Obviously prices here in St. Johns County have gone up drastically. No one's arguing that, but also what happened last year is interest rates went from 3% to 7.2% in October, and that drastically changed what people could afford on a month-to-month basis.
Yeah.
So could we talk a little bit about that? What, in terms of being someone who makes $55,000 a year, maybe they're single, maybe they're married to someone else who makes the same income, how does that affect them?
Oh, yeah. I mean, they can buy way less house. If you have to borrow and your interest rate goes up, I mean, you can see you're affording way less house. Now, I will say it actually helps you. And this is going to sound weird, but when interest rates go up, it knocks the steam out of the housing market. And we've seen that. They've gotten high enough now where the housing market has come down. So now what you're doing, if you're able to buy, your rate's higher, but you're buying the house probably 20% lower than it would have been at the peak a year ago. So you're getting a savings there. And then when rates come down, you'll be able to refinance. Now, there's a cost to doing that, but you're going to end up having saved on the house, bought less money than you would have, which is a good thing because you got yourself less in debt and you're less cash poor. Your cash flow will look better when you refinance. So I think that if you can buy now, it's not a bad time. The rates being high have helped make the housing market a little bit better. If rates hadn't come down, we would have just seen inflation. The only thing we've done right, the country has done right to fight inflation is increase interest rates. Literally everything else has gone against us. Energy prices were going up. Oil futures are down now, so that should help. But energy prices kept going up. That causes inflation. Government spending was way out of control under Trump and Biden. So that's caused a lot of inflation. I mean, during COVID, we shut everything down, didn't produce anything, and spent money like drunken sailors. I mean, what's going to happen? Inflation, of course. Any economist is going to say that. So now we got inflation. We did it to ourselves. All right, maybe we had to do it to keep the economy running, but we got it. So GDP has not grown enough to keep up with the government spending. You get a lot of government spending, it creates inflation. If GDP isn't high enough, it creates inflation. So the only input we did on that kind of little inflation pyramid is the only thing we did right, really, was raise interest rates.
Yeah.
And that has started to cause inflation to come back down. And you can see now the Fed is pivoting a little bit. They are probably not going to raise rates. Maybe they'll raise them one or two more times is what they've indicated. But
kind of being ambiguous about it, what they're going to do, which I think is the point.
They're going to wait for more data. The thing is, they've done what they've said they're going to do.
That's true.
They've just been very consistent. And so I believe them. I think they're probably going to raise rates one more time or none, depending on the data. If we really are at the terminal rate, which means the rate of interest that will bring down inflation on its own without doing anything else, then we'll see.
We'll get the soft landing.
We'll get maybe then. But what the dirty secret, and we talked about this, is raising rates does really solve inflation, because if you just keep raising rates, you cause things to go wrong. You push and force a recession. And that's where is happening. If you look at the economists now and people, they're predicting a recession probably sometime this year, maybe next year, who knows. And the recession will cause inflation to come down. When that occurs, the Fed will get us out of the recession by lowering rates, which will be like, yay, rates are coming down, and that'll pull us out of the recession and things. And the recession is a bad word, but it doesn't have to be. Imagine that you're driving fast in the left-hand lane and you're going 85 miles an hour. And, the speed limit is 75, and you see traffic ahead, and maybe you see blue lights, and you're like, oh, I'm going 85. I better slow. I don't want to get a ticket. So you slow down to 75. Well, that's right there, an economy that's slowing down. And then you slow down again to 70 or 65. Well, 65 is still going pretty fast, but you just had 2 quarters of decrease, 2 quarters of GDP decline. Is a recession, really.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way I look at it. Like, you can still have a strong economy and be in a recession.
Yeah. Well, and even with that, I think could be wrong on this. You guys might have to fact check me. But I think out of the last 10 recessions that we've had, in 6 of them, housing prices have actually gone up.
Yeah.
So, and that's when you hear recession, you think the opposite. You think housing market's going to crash, or it's going down, because that's, you think recession, you just have a negative which there is a negative connotation to it. There's a lot of bad things that go with that. People lose jobs, but doesn't necessarily mean that this is going to cause the housing market to go down.
Well, the stock market and the housing market tend to be leading indicators, and they don't move, they're not highly correlated. So they move independently of one another, but they tell different stories of what's going on with the overall economy. And so a lot of times the housing market coming down and the stock market coming down is an indicator that a recession is going to happen. And then when we get the recession and the news of inflation, inflation coming down and interest rates coming down will fuel the stock market and the housing market. Because if you can imagine what's happening, people right now who have wealth and institutions and people are putting it in short-term vehicles. They're going, I can get a 5% CD, boom, and they're loading up these 5% short-term vehicles. Well, what that's not doing is going in the stock market. It's not going in the housing market. When they lower interest rates, those 5% CDs are gone, and now those people come back and they got to get a 4 or a 3. And if they have to go get a 3, they're not going to want to get a 3. It's not keeping up anymore. Not what they wanted. So that money has to go somewhere. So now they go, oh, geez, real estate was down and interest rates are down. Now I might as well put it in real estate, or I might as well put it in the stock market, and then boom, those things grow. And so you can be in a recession and have those things come right back, like you said. And it's just a mechanism of capital flows. And it flows to where it makes the most sense to go. And when you encourage short-term vehicles, you're encouraging, when you raise interest rates, you're encouraging short-term vehicles. The capital's not flowing to the markets.
Yeah. And on that point, right? So it's like, so the money will go where, interest rate starts going where it makes sense for them. And that's where we're talking about people who have more money than the average person, right? So they're going to switch it. Hey, this investment over here now makes more sense. So when interest rates start going down, which we all expect they will, we all can pretty much predict that they will at some point, maybe the next couple of years, maybe the next couple of months, who knows? But when they go down, you're going to see those buyers come back into that sector, right? So the buyers that we're talking about, the people that are single making $55,000 a year, what's the chance that they're going to get a house in that market versus today's market? And this is something that, for myself personally, I'm in that essentially, I make a little bit more than that, but I'm in that first time home buyer, that generation, that group of people essentially that for the past couple of years since the pandemic have been getting their ass kicked, like all day long, working with FHA, VA, USDA buyers, all those type of buyers who have the lower down payment, who don't have that 20% down or cash, because 30% of our transactions here are cash.
Yep.
They lost out. And that's when we had no inventory, we had multiple offers, and we had artificially low interest rates because of the pandemic, right?
Yep.
Then things changed so quickly. And now affordability is out the window, right? Because it's not as good as it was when it was 3% interest rates. Prices have gone up, interest rates have gone up. But that means that the competition has gone away. So that's why I purchased the house, because for me to go into the market of the pandemic and try to buy a house, it wasn't happening. I was going to lose every offer. And I lost 4 offers to get to the one house that I got here in today's market, right? So I'm in that same boat as pretty much everyone else. And I was scared. I was like, am I going to be able to buy a house if interest rates go down? Because if they go down to a certain point, then prices start climbing like crazy.
It could go right up.
And then the competition's back again.
Yep.
So then you have the same people back in the market. Oh, you know what? Hey, interest rates, you know what? I can make that payment, no problem. I'm more comfortable with that. And then everyone's in the game again.
Exactly.
Right now, only the people who are like myself are in the game where it's like, well, you know what? That if we bring back that competition, well, then I'm really not going to be able to afford much.
Oh, exactly.
So,
and we're really, it's important to understand, and you know this as a real estate investor and guy, but the housing market, it depends on the tiers. Like, for instance, interest rates rising doesn't really affect high-end homes. Those prices don't come down much because those buyers have cash they're coming in with, and they're putting so much down it doesn't affect them. We're talking about regular people, working class families, first-time buyers, people who are trying to buy a house for less than 300K, it really affects you. Even anything under 500K, interest rates affect those values on those homes. And I'd say even higher than that, it affect it. But real high, over $1 million, they don't affect it as much.
Yeah. Well, those guys are just like, hey, here's the cash.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but to your point, I mean, I think it's a good time to buy a house right now. And I know people are saying, well, but Ben, the interest rates are high and I can't afford as much. Well, the market's down because interest rates are high, to your point. But anybody who's in that boat, who's at that level, for them to be able to buy a house, they needed to start 3 years ago. Mm-hmm. So they were trying to get into a house 3 years ago and they paid off their debt. And now they got debt free and they got good credit and they've saved up some money. And now, they can pull the trigger. But, to start now, it's going to be 2, 3, 4, 5 years at that income level before someone's ready to buy a house. So you see what the market is then. Yep. So the thing is, you kind of you have to buy the market when you're able and when you're ready, if it makes sense to you at that time. And, so you can wait. And if you're in a good living situation, it may make sense to wait. Yep. But rent goes up. And so, your rent keeps going up. And I have a lot of clients who are great people, but their rent goes up and their rent goes up. And it's better for them to just buy and have it fixed. Mm-hmm. And then they know what it's going to be. So it's predictable. Especially retirees on a fixed income, they can't have their rent go up a few times during retirement. Just is something that they're not, if it's tight, you're not going to be able to afford it.
Yeah, that's it. And it's not me as because we know as professionals, and you're working with people, I'm working with people in a different capacity, but the inflation, the interest rates, that's hitting those people the hardest. Because if you're talking about someone who's just buying groceries, all that's gone up. Now the interest rates on mortgage, gas has gone up. Everything has gone up significantly. And now they're looking like, Thomas, you're telling me to buy a house too on top of that? That seems really, really hard. And I'm agreeing. It is hard. Yeah. There's no doubt about it. It's definitely more difficult than it has been in the past.
Yeah. So let's look at the picture on the other side of it for retirees who are on a fixed income and everything's more expensive and they're worried about running out of money. It's scary. Mm-hmm. And what are they going to do? And many of them, thank God, many of them own a home. Mm-hmm. And that home represents a lot of value that they're going to be able to stay retired on, whether they downsize or do what some people consider a bad word, depending on the situation, or reverse mortgage. Yeah. I think downsizing can make a lot of sense, but the home represents value that they have. Yeah. That's wealth that they've stored and that they can stay retired from. Mm-hmm. Without it, and if their rent goes up, they can be out of luck. Yep. And so that can be a difference maker in staying retired for people. It's just that simple. Yeah. So when people say, Ben, do you think it's a good time to buy or not? I think it depends on your situation, on what you've done, on how long you're going to be in the area. But in general, if you're going to be around a while, yes, it's good. Yeah. And I would even say that when the market was high. Mm-hmm. When I bought my current house, it was not necessarily considered to be a good time to buy. It turned out to be a good time, but it wasn't. Mm-hmm. And I bought it, and then the hurricanes hit and all the prices came down, and everyone said, don't you wish you'd have waited? And I said, not really. It doesn't matter to me. Yeah. It mattered, but not really. I'm going to be here for 20 years, and in 20 years it'll make money, and I'm happy with where I get to live. Yep. And now the house has appreciated a ton since then. I bought it literally right before Hurricane Matthew. Mm-hmm. And then that area where I live right behind Osteen's there, and my neighborhood, it got hit and everything flooded, and all those houses got beat up, and rightfully so. They all flooded again. So the prices went way down. Well, now all those houses are worth more than 2 times what they were. Mm-hmm. And I got to participate in that, in that growth. Yeah. So that was just fortunate. That was a blessing to me, that I wouldn't have done if I hadn't owned that.
Yeah, and I think that's the big problem is people don't look at it like that, especially, and it's hard to see, what do they say? It's hard to see the forest through the trees or something like that. It's some analogy there, but it's like if you're in that boat where you're making $55,000 a year, you can't see the long-term benefits. And prior to the pandemic, all us realtors talked about is the long-term benefits of homeownership and how historically prices appreciate 2.5% to 3.5% every year, so that you should be appreciating every single year and making, and benefiting off of that equity, right? But now with everything being so expensive, how do you get over that hurdle with someone who's like, man, I got $100 in my account right now because of just how stretched thin I am. How do they make a difference? How do they make headway to move forward to buy a house?
That's a great question. It really comes down to getting control of your cash flow and seeing where does your time go. I mean, we spend a lot of time working. Now, we trade it for dollars, and then we're trading our dollars for something that's valueless. That's silly. So get control of that and have some discipline. It's hard to do. Like, I'm saying it, but I'm really saying it to myself.
Yeah.
Hey, Ben, you spent a lot of money on silly things.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, at one point, my cable bill was like $240. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's insanity to let your cable bill and your streaming services get to $240. Like, that's insane. So now it's down to like $100. Okay, that's still crazy. If you're trying to save for a house, maybe you just use the library's internet. I know that sounds like insanity, but that's what you do.
Yeah.
You cut things out and you save it. Look, talk to your grandparents. You don't talk about somebody that had a good discipline on what to do. Talk to grandparents and see what they did. Talk to great-grandparents. They literally cooked food. They didn't go out to eat.
Yeah.
No, if they went out to eat once every 2 months, and I'm not saying don't go out to eat. I love to go out to eat. But what I'm saying is if you do go out to eat, be cognizant of it and then eat your leftovers.
Yeah.
And then cook food too. And then do everything you can to save your money. I was shocked years ago. I looked at how much I spent out to eat. And I was like, I can't believe how much money I'm burning through just eating out. Huh. And when I saw that, I cut it in half, and I still spend a ton going out to eat because I enjoy it. But
yeah.
I was able to cut it in half and save that bit. But people spend way too much money on silly things.
Yep.
I mean, all these guys are doing these vape pens. It's ridiculous. Man. It's ridiculous.
Well,
man.
It's yesterday's cigarettes, right?
Cigarettes, vape pens. All right, look, that's silly.
Yeah.
Look, you're trying to afford a house and you have a family and you got a vape pen, and I don't mean to criticize anything, but that costs money. Then the vape costs money, and then this costs money, and then you're getting drinks at whatever.
Yeah.
If you go out and you have a couple beers somewhere, that's expensive.
Yeah.
Everything. So it just adds up. So honestly, it's hard to do, but if you talk to your grandparents, they'll just tell you, don't do it.
Yeah.
Cut it out. And then, it's funny. Because I'm cheap as heck, but I love to go to Costco and get the $1.50
the
hot dog
yeah.
and the soda, and I feel like I did something so good when I do it.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing is to go on a date to Costco and buy them dinner.
Get the free
and it's
samples.
Like the $3 dinner, and you have a special girl if they think that's okay.
Yeah.
If you could go to Costco on a date for $3, you got a real keeper right there, man.
This guy's got his finances in order. He's getting $1.50 hot dogs, but then you go into Costco and drop $300. You're like, how did that happen? That's how they get you.
Oh, they get you. I do.
Every time I walk through that door.
How do you really save money? I know I always spend a bunch there.
Yeah. But no, that's a great story for sure. So let's just sum it up. If put yourself in their shoes. If you're making $55,000 a year, let's say you have, let's put you in the best case scenario. You have no debt. You have a healthy savings. What are your next steps?
You got to get ahead of your cash flow, and you got to have money left over. And if you have a healthy savings, you've probably already done that. But when I made $50K a year, it was a long time ago in the Marine Corps, I had roommates.
Mm-hmm.
People don't want to have roommates.
Yeah.
I get it. It's hard, but I don't spend much time at home.
Mm-hmm.
All I do there is sleep.
Yeah.
So having roommates isn't a big deal, and it can help you. So aside from that, the next step is to see what you can afford, talking to a mortgage broker, see what you can afford, look around, see where you'd like to be, work with a real estate professional like yourself, get educated on the market. I mean, no one's going to become an expert on the real estate market overnight, and you don't need to be an expert. Well, you don't need to be an expert. You need to just find a home that's at a fair value. And the market will show you that. And your realtor will be able to show you, a good realtor like yourself, or there's a lot of good ones in town, will be able to show you what a good, fair value is. And if you hold that home for a while, it's going to make sense. It'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think realtors do get a bad rap. Most of the realtors I know are really good people, and they just want the best for people. And I think that's kind of where I just want to help people get to where they want to go. It's not like, hey, I want everyone to be able to afford and own a house. We're going to talk about affordable housing here in a bit, but, that's not realistic for everyone. And I'm not going to push someone to like, hey, you should buy this house because it's going to cost you X, but it's going to be the house that you want. Listen, there's stepping stones. You got to take it. Everyone, especially my generation, we just talked about it, like looking like you have money and buying a new car and buying the most expensive house you can buy. It's not exactly the best thing you can do. Maybe buy a condo that's smaller that in the future you could rent out, maybe Airbnb it once you move into your next place, and then you start building wealth. But how realistic is that? With everything going on in today's world, it is realistic. It's just tougher. It's just much, much harder for those people. So, I know we talked about your townhome before that you had on St. Augustine Beach. Can because I think this is a good parallel.
Yeah.
Could you just kind of dive into
that?
So
I bought a townhome, and I bought it while I was still in the Marine Corps because I knew I wanted to get out of the Marine Corps and move here. And I knew I could qualify for a mortgage while I was still in the Marine Corps. And when I got out, I wouldn't be able to. So I wanted to buy it before I left. So I bought a townhome right around 2011 in Sunset Point, the preserve, which is on Anastasia Island. And it was a nice townhome, kind of those like two, and the way they are, they're like duplexes, kind of nice places. And I got a nice deal on it, and at the time it was about $215,000, and it was all I could really afford at that time. I mean, I could do a little more, but not much. But at that time, there was places all over the island for $250 and below that I could afford. And so if it's Ben Reep now in that same type of scenario, even me making a lot more money now, it would be hard to afford that same townhome.
Yeah.
That same townhome right now is about $500,000 right now.
Yeah.
So now if it's me and I'm making more than twice what I made then in the Marine Corps, okay, so I'm doing much better financially, but the home is worth way more than twice.
Yeah.
I don't think I could barely afford it.
Yeah.
So
and the mortgage payments based off interest about $1,000 more than it would have been last year.
Yeah.
So it's a chunk of change. That's a lot of money on the monthly.
Yeah. So it completely takes people out of the market, and it's because this area is because it's a desirable area. It's a great place to live.
Yeah.
We have good schools. We got great restaurants. We got a great beach. It's just people are super nice. It's a great area.
Great history.
Great history. I mean, we've talked about it. So people are coming here and they're bringing in the money from selling their homes in Connecticut and New Jersey and New York and California and wherever else they're coming from, and that is helping our market. It hurts people who are from here or who've lived here and are trying to afford a home. It hurts the working class person who's come here to live and work and afford a home.
Yeah.
It's tough. There is a affordable home shortage for sure in the county, and I know there's been a lot of people talk about that, but you can see it when you look on Zillow. Just look and see. There's not much out there.
Yeah, there might be like 20 homes under $300,000.
Oh, yeah.
And that's pretty crazy when you think about it. Now, are there condos, townhomes that are going to be under that? Of course, but and that's a hard thing too, is when people are looking to buy a home, they're like, I want a single family home. And it's like, yeah, I get that. I do, but I'm the same way. We got a townhome over by the Outlet Mall, and I was like, man, I want to live in townhome. People tell me, and people, they complain about my trash cans and stuff like that. I don't want that. But at the end of the day, especially for someone like myself, building a business, trying to figure out my way in life, buying investment like doing all those things, and just like everyone else, everyone's busy, right? That might be one of the better ways to go, because a condo, townhome, they're going to take care of the exterior for you. In terms of a stepping stone to home ownership, now I have a single family house. I don't have irrigation. I got to go out every morning and water the grass, and it drives me nuts. I'm like, every time it rains, I'm one of those like stereotypical dads with my New Balances on, like, we needed this rain, because I'm going out there every day and now taking care of that kind of stuff. Whereas before, it was not even my wheelhouse. It was just a townhome. The HOA did it, and that's something, especially when you need to focus on cash flow, lowering debts. You don't want to worry about paying someone to take care of your lawn. And that's where I think that condo townhome area gets like a really bad rap. But I think in terms of stepping stone, we all need to be realistic of, like, we all want a mansion on 20 acres with a 6-car garage or whatever. Of course, that'd be cool, right? We're on the beach, or on the intercoastal.
Yeah.
But, you need to take a little step into home ownership, a little baby step, maybe a condo townhome, get your feet wet and see how that works out for you, and then go to the single family to where the responsibility grows. And then also with that, you'll get appreciation too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think having a stepping stone home makes sense. Most people do. And truthfully, a home doesn't have to be big to be enjoyable and to be fun and to be worthwhile.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, the tiny home thing is genius. And for someone like me who, just scatters stuff around and collects garbage, which is a terrible trait, but I wind up doing that, the less is always more.
Yeah.
Smaller homes are better. They cost less. They're easier to maintain, and they're easier for me to keep clean. So it's just better for a guy like me. And then I think a lot of people fall in that boat. I mean, unless you have a family and you need lots of bedrooms, I mean, then you're in a different position. But
yeah. And I'm sure you stayed on top of this with the affordable housing. And this is, I want to make this a pet project for myself. I want to start researching the affordable housing options that nationally people have done and see like what I can maybe throw out there and be like, hey, I kind of did a lot of research on this and post it out there. But I want to just get your opinion on kind of what's happened here in St. Johns County. Affordable housing has been a big topic, right? Because of exactly what we're talking about, right? Average salary here is $37,000. Most people working in public works, public admin, making around $50,000 a year. So that's what the majority of people make here. And it makes it really difficult for them to afford a home. So affordable housing has been something that the county has been talking about and what they can do with it. And recently, I'm not sure if you know this or not, but they just they got a recommendation from the Northeastern Home Builders Association where in workforce housing zones, they used to require that the developer set aside 40% of the development for affordable housing. Now, this is only in certain zones in St. Johns County. That's now changed because of a recommendation. They said, hey, we want you to knock that down to 30%.
Okay.
So now they're only obligated to build 30% for affordable housing, but that also incentivizes builders to build, right? So it's a double-edged sword there, right? We lose affordable housing, which we desperately need, but then it also, in the other situation, they weren't going to build them anyway because it's like, well, that's too much. We're not going to make any money. So it's a tough position to be in, but what are your thoughts on that in terms of spurring that, or if it's a good idea, bad
it's a
idea?
great idea because we need workers and we have them.
Yeah.
But I'm a capitalist, so I don't like a lot of government interference in things. However, I do think it makes sense to build affordable housing, and I think that there's projects in the country where people have built affordable housing. Builders have done it and offered it at low or fair prices and made a lot of money doing it.
Oh, yeah.
Because they built clean, simple homes with smaller lots. On maybe more in the country, and you know what? There's a lot of places where that works, and it works out well. And so, what's the difference between affordable housing with the smaller lot where you build two houses? They're going to make the money, and all they care about is their return on their capital investment. So it just depends on how we're building, and I think the answer can be simpler, smaller homes.
Yeah.
And make them nice because everyone wants a nice community, and we can have affordable housing that's simple and small. I mean, heck, I would be interested in that.
Yeah, seriously. Like I think, especially for the younger generation, people my age and everything. Like, hey, you don't have kids, maybe you have a dog. A little 2-bedroom, 2-bath home that's maybe 1,000 square feet. All day long, that's going to be a win for you, because it's easier to clean, easier to maintain, and also you shouldn't be paying as much, right? And especially if there's a subdivision out here, and we know the county is sitting on some land out here that they could definitely do that on, so they could make it beneficial for these developers.
And there's ways to have houses share walls and lower cost, which is what a townhome really is, and ways to do it which still offers a lot of privacy, which is what people want in owning a home, and it lowers cost. And I think that is a way to have affordable housing. I mean, depends on what you want, but you can't have everything. You can't get it all. If you want to go with whatever you're buying, if you want it affordable, you're going to give some things up.
Yep. No, there's got to be a give and take, right? And that for these guys, they got to make money. I kind of same page where it's like kind of feel like they were making money regardless, but
they're gonna. They're gonna.
Yeah. But it's just interesting because affordable housing is such a big thing, and I think especially as our county continues to grow, which, I mean, from my perspective, I'm not sure if you agree with this, but it's still blowing up. Like it doesn't seem like much has changed in the past year.
No, it is, and it's awesome.
Yeah,
and I used to
agree.
I used to sit back and like cheer on myself and be like, I'm really good. My business is growing. I'm great. I'm doing all the things right. I'm growing at 10% a year. And then I look back and I'm like, but St. Johns County grew at 14%. I'm not even treading water.
Yeah, right. Well,
And then I realize I'm just growing at the rate that the county's growing.
Yeah.
Well, okay, a rising tide lifts all ships. I'm one of those ships.
Yeah.
A lot of businesses have experienced the same thing. They've experienced growth and they've done better, and people have done better because of the growth of the county. It's helped me.
Yeah, I agree.
So
100%. And, since we're talking about the county here, just some of your pros and cons of St. Johns County. Like, what are the best things about here, and what's something maybe you're not a big fan of?
Okay, the best things about it, I love the weather. Even when it gets hot, I just embrace it, like it. I like the culture of like a fishing town, and I believe it's got a bit of a blue collar feel and the history like we've talked about. I really like the local people. And when I say local people, I just mean people who live here and are from here.
Yeah.
I mean, if they've lived here their whole life or their family's always been here, they're great. But people who've chosen to come here, my neighbor, he's a local now. The guy's from New York. He's one of the best guys you could ever meet. He can fix anything, works hard, blue collar guy. Him and his wife are fantastic. Couldn't ask for better neighbors.
Yeah.
My other neighbor's retired teacher. They've been here for 30 years, and like they're fantastic people.
Yep.
And so you move into a good community, and the people are great.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, and for the most part in this county, there's good people here, and the beauty of the county and the resources of the county, the beach, the history, the lakes, the river, the intercoastal, the whole thing of this county that stretches out, it's amazing. I mean, it's a cool spot.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah. And some of your cons, some of the negatives.
Oh yeah, negatives.
We always like to be transparent.
The negatives about St. Johns County. Well, real estate market's been high, and that can be a negative if you're trying to buy. It's hard to find affordable housing. That can be the negative. Traffic. My parents have finally gotten fed up with it. They love St. Augustine, but to them the traffic's too much, so they moved to Banner Elk, North Carolina.
Okay.
They live here part-time now, but they're thinking they would really probably rather be just in Banner Elk more because it's just they don't have any traffic.
Yeah.
And, for people who want a simpler life, they moved here when St. Augustine was sleepy and slow in 98.
Yep.
And it's changed a lot.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people I know that are local are getting tired of it because it's just a lot of traffic now. Well, for me, it's not a lot of traffic.
No.
It's not that much traffic. It doesn't take that long to get anywhere. But yes, there is traffic. There are other cars on the road.
Yeah.
But those other cars to me represent business.
Yeah.
they represent people out there doing the best they can to get things done. And,
If you're from a place that actually has traffic,
Yeah,
then
it's
this
not-
is like,
Yeah.
this isn't bad at all. But
Yeah.
like if you're from here, lived here historically, you used to be able to get around town like 25 minutes if and you get all the green lights,
Yeah.
Now it's not the case, but it's like compared to any other city, it's like it's just fun.
everything takes 30 minutes now. I just plan on 30 minutes,
Yep.
at least, even if it's a close drive. But that's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, it's not.
It's nothing compared to traffic in most of the country,
I will say that I do think, especially with what's going on here with affordable housing, so I feel, and like I told you, my best friend moved out to Palatka. My sister actually bought a house in Palatka.
Yeah.
I feel like Palatka is what St. Augustine was in 98. It's very sleepy, kind of slower town. And that area, because of what's happening here, you have so many people moving that way and then commuting here for work or commuting to Jacksonville for work, right? So like, let's just take New York for an example. There's people that commute 3 hours one way just to go to New York City to work, right? Which is craziness to me, And that's not everyone. The majority of people are probably commuting about an hour. And I think that time will start to increase as St. Johns County starts to develop. That'll probably be 10 years down the road. But that traffic, that hour commute, I think is going to become more of the norm versus like, oh, that's a regular.
Absolutely. I agree. I like Palatka. I think Palatka could really be up and coming. I think that there's some reasons where maybe some of the local town fathers have tried to slow the growth in Palatka, and in St. John's they haven't tried to slow it as much. They've been more calculated in how to grow, and you can't really slow growth. I mean, you can't stop someone from selling land and building on it. You can't. I mean, you can slow it down, but you can't really stop it.
Yeah.
So you can only just try to do it the best that you can in the most desirable way. And I think that growth is going to wind up going through Palatka. And I think there's some great finds in Palatka, in an area that is a town that could be really nice, and I think will be really nice. I would love it, to have Palatka, really, that downtown area, come back. Yep. It would be awesome.
Oh, it's starting to. They started to redevelop all like the intersections and started to put like the brick pavers and on the intersections. We went to a restaurant down there called the Magnolia. They got an oyster bar down there now.
I heard it's really nice.
It's really nice.
I heard it was good. Yeah.
Azalea Brewing's really nice. So yeah, I'm
gonna check it out.
It's very cool down there.
Okay.
Yeah. So
just hearing somebody say that is a new thing.
Yeah.
And just saying that is a new thing. Like me going, I want to go check out Palatka. Like I do. I always thought Corky Bell's was a fun place to go, and it is. Well, that's super crowded. That's the only place down there, really. Well, now with the new restaurant, what was it, Magnolia's?
Magnolia. It's
breakfast
spot.
I heard. What is it?
It's a breakfast spot.
A breakfast spot.
Yeah.
What about that building? It's a beautiful brick building they're renovating. I heard they're putting a higher end restaurant. They were trying to model it like on the ice plant in there.
Yeah, so that's the oyster bar.
That's the oyster bar.
So they have an oyster bar there, and then like an outdoor seating area, really beautiful. Like it's right in front of the water there.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So those old buildings could house a really nice, classy restaurant. And I know that I heard that they were doing that, and I wanted to go check it out. So the oyster bar would be cool. What's the name of that place?
I can't remember the name, but you Google oyster bar in Palatka,
you'll
it's the
find
only
it.
one.
Yeah.
So I think especially what we're talking about here, people moving out of the area. Palatka has West Augustine, Palatka, Hastings, all those areas that are more affordable than your 20 minutes around St. Augustine.
Yeah.
Those are the areas that, especially if you're in the $55,000 range, you should really be researching into those. Palatka's changing like crazy. Hastings, they just put a $110 million wastewater facility over there. They're talking about redeveloping the main street. And I just think that's one of those areas that people really should consider.
It's absolutely right. It's going to flow all the way out. And if you drive through Florida, there's a lot of towns where the downtown has sort of almost a ghost town. Palatka's one of them. Hastings is a good example of that, where those towns can come back. Some real estate investment, some business investment, just growth as it flows out that way. I mean, in the next 15 years, it's very likely that from St. Augustine all the way out to Gainesville is pretty much all a singular community. And I know that's scary to people, and locals are going to go, oh no, that's terrible. And yes, I get it. But look, that's based on the growth of the state and where it's going. That's what can head, and it can be done really nice. It's the reality, and it can actually be done really well and nice. I mean, there will be more traffic. There will be more traffic, but there'll also be more jobs, more opportunity, more businesses, more to do. It could be good for a lot of areas, and it could really help a lot of areas where people own businesses and own homes. It could really bring those areas up.
Yep. So, and just adding to that, for these people that are making that money, that $55,000 a year. Okay, we talked about appreciation, the long-term aspect of that. You're buying in Green Cove, you're buying in Palatka, Middleburg, Jackson, pretty much anywhere in Jacksonville, anywhere in North St. John's, Hastings, all of that. You're gonna have the First Coast Expressway come right next to you. That's gonna bring development. It's gonna bring jobs, appreciation. What we're talking about.
The port in Jacksonville is so key, and it's instrumental that brings so many jobs, and it's going to continue to occur. And money that's flowing into there is going to just keep fueling growth. I feel really good economically about Florida.
I agree.
That's part of the reason I'm here.
Yes, sir.
Because it was a good place to be here and to have a business and to participate in this. I mean, it's easy to position yourself in front of a wave and ride that wave to the shore. It's hard to do it without a wave.
Yeah.
Well, St. Augustine, St. Johns County is a nice wave, and it's been a nice wave, and it's steady, and it's good, and it's done well.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to stop.
I like that analogy a lot, especially because you got the beach,
yeah,
you got the wave, ties in. You've said that before. Well, Ben, This has been awesome. I appreciate you doing this with me. If someone wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, probably just at my office or my email, ben.reep@ampf.com. My office is Galleon Capital Advisors. You can look us up online. We're through Ameriprise. We've got 4 advisors here. All of us do a really good job. I'm just one of them.
Yeah.
So anybody you get here is going to be good. They're going to try their best to help you. We've got a good staff, a good team. That's it,
Okay. Awesome. So Galleon, you're right here on A1A right here, right on St. Augustine Beach.
A1A and 16, yeah.
Very cool.
Right across from the beach City Hall.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching this. I hope you gained a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of insight into buying a home, especially if you're in that $55,000 amount range. If you do need any financial advice, make sure you reach out to Ben and his team because they're doing a lot of great things here in the area. Until next time, guys, we'll see you.